Next up, Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
Let's dive right into the Kansas City game. Chiefs won against the Dolphins, which, thank goodness, the way they won that game was the way I needed them to. 33-27. Patrick Mahomes, of course, does Patrick Mahomes things, but he also did things that we didn't expect out of him. He threw 3 interceptions in this game. First half, the Dolphins went into the fourth quarter down 30-10 with a 4-1 turnover differential.
They sure did, didn't they? Wow.
30-10 with a 4-1 turnover differential.
Uh-huh.
So, Jimmy, 2 questions on this one. First off, does that concern you about the Chiefs with this score being as close as it was?
Just rephrase that.
So, are you concerned about the Chiefs allowing the Dolphins to make it 27-33 and almost coming back on the game-winning drive?
I'm concerned about the Chiefs, period. This is a very critical period in the NFL. Weeks 14, 15, now you're really trying to hit your stride. Now you're trying to shore up any weaknesses that you have that have been exploited throughout the season. You have plenty of game film on all the teams you play. They have plenty of game film on you. You have plenty of game film on yourself to see your weaknesses. And this Chiefs team, where they're at this year, this is not as far as they were last year. Now, that's not to say that they're not going to go to the Super Bowl or whatever. They're still a great team, but this game was sort of a microcosm of how things have been for the Chiefs these last 3 to 4 to 5 weeks. Teams are catching up to them just a little bit in terms of their understanding of what they're doing, because you mentioned the turnover differential. The Dolphins football team having 3 interceptions and 1 fumble recovery, that's very un-Chiefs-like to allow that.
Right.
And more worse than that is this Chiefs defense that has been – last time this year they were on an incline. They were getting better. This time they're getting worse because, yes, they had 5 sacks in this game, but they couldn't stop anybody in terms of the pass. They allowed 316 yards and 2 touchdowns to Tua, who thus far in his NFL career, it's not like he's not even been throwing the ball like Justin Herbert. So to allow him to do that meant that he was comfortable. For whatever reason, he was seeing things clearly, and he was hitting his marks. So this pass defense for the Chiefs gave up 11 yards per catch. That's a first down. So basically every time he dropped back nearly and he completed a pass, it was for a first down. So that's problematic, that they're not blowing teams out or really taking command of them the way that they were last year. So, yeah, I'm concerned for this Chiefs team in the sense of it's going to be tougher for them going through the playoffs, much tougher than it was last year. They're going to be closer games because their playoffs last year was they would get down big and then they would just run right past that team just like the Golden State Warriors.
Yes.
This year they're going to be playing closer games where it's neck and neck, where it's going to be lead changes and such for this reason because this Chiefs defense is not playing like they were last season.
Yeah, it's similar to, I'd say, was it 2 years ago when they were in the playoffs and they were not able to truly get through everybody like you would expect. So I looked at their last. This is what concerns me about the Chiefs is since their blowout win of the Jets 35-9, they've won their games by 2 points, 4 points, 3 points, 6 points, and then 6 points. That's concerning because Vegas had them as big favorites through most of these games of at least a touchdown. And they're not hitting it. They're 5-0 straight up, but they're 0-5 against the spread, which tells me is they're not living up. And I get this to Colin. He pointed this out on the herd that they're not living up to Vegas's expectations. And Vegas goes by numbers. They're all analytics. They don't have only thing they have in this game is how much money they can make off of it. And the Chiefs aren't living up to what expectations are. So it looks like they're getting a little stagnant. And so I went and started looking at some of their games that they played. And this is the one thing I've noticed about them. If it ain't a big play, they're not really grinding out possessions. Like it's not a 15-play, 16-play possession where they're just going and going and going. Very often, it's big play or it's 3 and out. And I've always said this. The offense has to help the defense. You've got to do your part by staying on the field long enough so your defense can get rested. They're not doing that at all. They lucked out in this game because they played the Dolphins, who did not capitalize on basically 3 straight possessions that they got the ball back within like 2 to 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first one was a 5-minute possession, then it was 2 minutes, then it was 58 seconds, and it went right back to the Dolphins, and they just did not capitalize. They got 1 field goal out of it, actually a field goal and a touchdown as they punted. So that's a little concerning that the Dolphins can go up 10 and then be down 30-10 going into the fourth quarter. So I ask you this question, Jimmy. Is there a team in the AFC, if giving a 4-1 turnover differential, will be able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs?
I can only think of one team. And if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm not necessarily afraid of anyone that I might meet in the AFC, which can work against them because then they may not take their problems very seriously. Something I didn't bring up is that they didn't run the ball very well. It was like 3.9 yards per carry, but when you take out Tyreek Hill's 32-yard run, it went to, I think, 2.7 yards per carry. 23 rushes, 62 yards, no touchdowns. So that's a problem too. The run is inconsistent. But across the AFC landscape, you might find this kind of interesting. 2 teams worry me. If I'm the Chiefs and I play this way in the playoffs, I will be worried about this team beating me. The first team, actually, you're not going to like this, Buffalo.
Oh, no, I know
because, like I said, with 4 turnovers, with the quarterback who was great at the beginning, was so-so in the middle, and now is back great again with a legit number 1 wide receiver and with a coaching staff that knows what they're doing, they would beat them if you spot them 4 turnovers. Another team, the Tennessee Titans, is another team, and which they faced last year, who would have revenge on their minds were they to beat them in the playoffs. And you have Derrick Henry, who's hitting his usual Derrick Henry stride, where he's running over everything the last 4 to 5 weeks of the season. So those 2 teams, and in terms of how they're coached, like with Mike Vrabel in Tennessee, I would worry about that. Everyone else, not so much.
See, I would normally agree with a lot of that assessment, especially the Bills, because they are playing some really good football. This is the issue with it. The limitation at the quarterback position is the only reason why you are not able to take advantage of a 3-1 turnover differential. Buffalo has that problem. Not saying that Josh Allen isn't good, but they held Josh Allen to 122 yards passing and an interception. They know how to defend him properly. They know how to irritate him, even with Stephon Diggs going off. 122 yards passing is really bad against the Chiefs defense that kind of gives up the booty.
Well, you know what week that was?
That was what that was the 7th week, 6th week? Yeah, 6th week.
Okay, so that was in the middle of when teams had enough film on him to make adjustments to make his life more difficult.
Right.
Which is not to say that the Chiefs couldn't do it again, because maybe Andy Reid just has Sean McDermott's number, or Eric Bieniemy, whoever it is, and they can figure out how to slow him down, because he can be slowed down. We've seen that this season.
We've seen that a lot. I've seen it with Josh Allen. If you look at his numbers, he's only had 2 really good games. So we'll talk about a little bit more as we go through the Steelers piece. But he had 2 great games and a lot of very mediocre games, and then a couple of atrocious ones. That Chiefs games was one of them. I don't think the Bills is one of them that can do it, only because they would have to really establish the run against Kansas City, and Josh Allen would have to make sure he doesn't do anything just stupid to give the ball back. I'm not that confident yet in them, especially because their defense is kind of dinged up. It's up and down. But as far as the AFC goes, Kansas City's in a good situation only because I can't think of a single quarterback outside of possibly Josh Allen that could make them pay. The Tennessee Titans is interesting. I didn't think about them because all they got to do is pound the ball and make their defense tired. They can do that and hold the ball all game long. So that one is actually an intriguing one. But I don't know of any team on that side. Now, on the NFC side, I think there's a couple of teams that can make them pay if they get in a situation where they turn the ball over. And it seems like if you put the right type of front 4 pressure on Mahomes, keep him in contain, and force him to play outside of his normal game plan, you got a chance.